But I'm a Hoosier though.
Oh, huge. Okay, that's right. That's
Welcome
right. You
to
did tell me that.
Pause
That's
for the
right.
Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear
Oh
an
man.
honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pause for the Truth. I'm your co host, Jocelyn Turner, and I'm delighted, as always, that you've joined us for what promises to be an important and timely conversation. Housing is more than a place to live, it affects our financial stability, our children's education, our health, and our ability to secure to build a secure future. Across the country, families are facing rising housing costs, limited inventory, and increasing challenges to achieving the dream of home ownership. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at where we are, what is driving today's housing challenges, and most importantly, what solutions are available to help individuals, families, and communities move forward. We're honored to welcome two distinguished leaders with extensive experience in housing and community development. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Orlando Spencer and Dr. Christopher Daniels. Thank you both for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us, Miss Jocelyn.
Thank you for
Absolutely. I'm
having
going to
me.
give you I'm going to give each of you a chance to introduce yourselves, but let me first acknowledge our behind the scenes guy. That's what we call him, our behind the scenes guy, who sometimes likes to fill in the fourth block when one of the co-hosts are not present. How are you doing this evening, Tyrone?
I'm doing well. Well, thank you very much for announcing me as the behind the scenes guy here on Pause for the Truth. It's always a pleasure. Thank these gentlemen for coming on to discuss this here topic. Dr. Kane assures me that he will be on shortly, so I'm going to scrunch down in my seat and pretend to be him.
You got to do a lot of scrunching down, Tyrone, but I'm not judging or, saying anything bad about it. Don't tell Dr. Kane I said that. Well, while we wait for Dr. Kane, I just want to give a public service announcement, as I often do, because, of course, I'm a health educator with public health experiences, saying that the temperatures are very extremely hot nowadays. Please make sure that you're checking on loved ones, the elderly, those persons who may be confined to their homes. Make sure that they are having sufficient air conditioning or cooling system in their home. I've personally visited an elderly person. When I walked in, I thought the heat was going to hit me. Unfortunately, they didn't recognize the situation that was happening. So don't take for granted. Don't just call and say, are you okay? Are you cool? Is it cool in your house? Sometimes it takes a visit to them. And also when you visit, take them a case of water, because we want to make sure that we encourage our loved ones to stay hydrated, and we stay hydrated ourselves. So I thought I'd give that plug, and also mention that we are in hurricane season for those of us who live in Florida and in communities that are impacted by hurricanes. And I think there was a system out there. So don't take for granted that the hurricane is not in your vicinity. We need to always be ready so that in the event it comes, we know what to do. And I always say, check with your local, because our viewers are all over Florida and elsewhere. Check with your local public health system to see what preparedness is available to you in your community and whether or not you live in a flood zone. So that's my public health announcement. Now let's move on to tonight's topic: housing at a crossroads, challenges, choices, and community solutions. So I have the pleasure, rather, he may not remember, but I met him several weeks ago when the Jacksonville chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers had an event. I believe it was their event at the Jacksonville Urban League. And I met Mr. Orlando Spencer. Mr. Spencer, Orlando, can you welcome and tell our audience a little bit about yourself? And you're on mute.
All right. Excellent. Way to pass the ball to me. Well, first, I'm just letting you all know, very excited to be here. My name is Orlando Spencer. I'm a Jacksonville native. Very proud and love my city of Duval. Right? Okay, so I serve my community, right? So I'm a product of the community in Jacksonville, North Side, and as it growing up as a football, what I would call star, right? I definitely got very accustomed and used to working on team settings. So I love the community, working with people and helping folks, fostering more economic power through housing. So as the president for the First Coast Association of Realtors, that echoes who I am because I'm working with dozens and dozens of other realtors who also are passionate about helping people get keys for home ownership, keys for economic empowerment through business, keys for also pulling other people up so we can have a strong community. So that's what I'm about, and I'm focused as an emerging developer doing scattered site development and real estate. So I'm impacting my community as much as I can with my community. And a major shout out to Dr. Daniels for being able to join us, because I met him on this road and he has taught me so much more in 2026 than he knows himself. So I appreciate what's happening and this platform for us to get it going.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome, Dr. Kane. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. I had a little bit of trouble signing in, but that's the first time I heard that a student learned more than the teacher did from the teacher's effort.
Yeah, I used to be a teacher, but now I'm student time.
Well, also joining us is Dr. Christopher Daniels. And Dr. Kane, you're going to be happy to hear what college he graduated from, university, pardon.
I already know.
Dr. Daniels,
right.
can you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I'm Dr. Christopher Daniels. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a two-time alum of Florida A&M University and also alum of Howard University. So I did my bachelor's and my master's at FAMU, and also did my PhD at Howard University. I taught at FAMU for almost 10 years. And also still teach to this day, but now I currently teach at Morehouse. So I teach at Morehouse remotely. I teach the fundamentals of real estate investing. So I also teach. I'm a local board president for the Tallahassee Board of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and I am the instructor for Region 6, which is Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, for the Developers Academy. So I teach real estate development, I teach real estate investing, teach finance, a myriad of other topics. In addition to that, I also am a real estate developer myself. So I build single family homes, also build apartments, and I'm also working on some commercial development as well. So just excited to be here and join the conversation.
Ms. Turner, the two things. First of all, he sounds like he's coming right off in living color. 15 jobs. And then the other thing is, he got me covered all the way around. I mean,
I know you were going to say that.
He got Morehouse. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Kane went to medical school. Excuse me. He was in the first class of medical school at Morehouse.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's old.
That's amazing. That's
It's
amazing.
old.
Yeah, I mean, he's old. He's an old guy. Anyway,
that's the young man up there in the top left-hand corner. Young man.
He's a legend. So welcome and thank you. Every time you turn on the news, or even in your own family, you have loved ones who are interested in getting a home, because we know that it is the pathway to wealth for most people. But when you look at, and this is to both of you, when you look at today's housing market, what concerns you the most? And either one of you can speak up.
Well, I guess I'll take a crack at it first. I mean, really, the first thing that concerns me most is affordability.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to be in tune to what's happening. Even with the affordability, a lot of that comes with challenges for our community. All right, we got whole lot of HBCU people over here, so we know that the challenges that make it so tough for African Americans to get homes. That's why Realtors began, because we had to help each other in order to purchase, in order to lease, in order to sell real estate as a whole. So there's a lot of bias in there, and there are a lot of challenges. You got to be tough through the home ownership buying process. So we will have resources and discussion tonight to help people try to get over those things, but I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's definitely simple. It is a simple checklist in order to purchase real estate in most hands, as long as your team is on board to help you get there.
You know, when you answered that question before, Dr. Daniel speak, I just want to mention to you, Orlando, that I remember when I got ready to buy my home, it was scary, right? And it wasn't until I attended a first-time home buyers workshop at the Jacksonville Urban League at the time that I understood that it was actually something to be proud of and not something to fear. And so, and we'll talk about that more. But when you were saying what you did, it just made me think about that feeling of home ownership, how I was years ago.
Definitely.
Yeah, Dr. Daniels, what about you? What concerns you the most about today's housing market?
I would say my biggest concern is the abundance of misinformation that's out there. There's just a tremendous amount of misinformation that people are just like taking and running with, right? So right now we're kind of like in this social media / AI era, or whatever you want to call it, where people believe that they're experts without really developing any real expertise. So there's so much false information out there, and in the way the algorithms work on social media, they continue to show you whatever you're biased towards, right? So you're thinking everyone's thinking this way, everyone's thinking this way, everyone's thinking this way, everyone's thinking this way, but really it's just because that's what you're clicking on, right? So if you're afraid to buy a house, you're going to see nothing but content about why you should be afraid, right? Or whatever, this going on, so on and so forth, right? So, and the other thing that I'm very concerned about is the lack of standard and the lack of professional standards for many real estate agents, right? So, the real estate, being a realtor, let me not say a realtor, let me say a realtor has become like popularized and glamorized. So people believe that like you really just have to just, take pictures and do this and that. But you're actually advising someone on a very, very, very important financial decision. If not the most important financial decision of their life, at least top 5, at least top 2 or 3, I would say for sure. So you need to be a very, very, very qualified person to advise someone on that type of purchase, right? However, the field does not properly screen out people, right? So a lot of people have bad experiences with real estate agents who are unqualified, who give unqualified, unprofessional advice, and then that gives them a bad experience in real estate. So I think that the two main things is the poor information out there and the lack of standards of quality for real estate professionals and people who are going to work in the field.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm reminded of a commercial that's running out there, and I'm not promoting anybody's business, but where they're showing how somebody, instead of seeking a lawyer, they had the lawyer, the mechanic in the room, in the surgical room doing surgery on a person. It just reminded me of that. Like, you need to go to somebody who has expertise in that area. What are the primary factors contributing to today's housing affordability challenges?
There are many, right? We have rising insurance rates, so that's the thing that a lot of people, you also have insurance practices that also deter an aged roof, for example, right? So you have taxes, property taxes that continue to increase as well. I know here in Florida, some people are rooting for some policy change when it comes to property taxes, but that's definitely another situation that continues to compound and increase. So those two factors are definitely one. And then, when you look at properties, every property isn't going to pass the sniff test for an inspection, but we definitely advise you must. All right, that's my core today. You must get an inspection before you purchase a home. Investment property, whatever it is, you must invest those couple $100 for, as Dr. Daniels mentioned, possibly your most important financial decision of your whole life, right? Because you have the ability to create some generational wealth after you finish signing, or you have an ability to, lose it, crush, check off all those lists on those spheres.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Dr. Daniels, what about you? What are some factors contributing to housing affordability challenges?
I mean, so the main factor is just supply and demand imbalance, and also over the excess demand for certain neighborhoods, right? So in many cities, there are what we call naturally affordable homes, but they're in neighborhoods that people don't want to live in, right? So in those cities, you don't have an affordability, you have a neighborhood desirability problem. So the majority of America actually has a neighborhood desirability issue because there are cheap houses and there are houses that people can afford, but they just don't want to live in those neighborhoods. So because of that, there's an excessive amount of demand for the homes in certain neighborhoods, right? So you have 100% of the population trying to buy houses in the neighborhoods that only are built for 30 or 40% of the population.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what causes unrealistic rises in prices because of the fact that you have so many people demanding it. Right. Whereas you have other neighborhoods where only maybe 10% of the population would actually consider living. So in those neighborhoods, you have a bunch of empty houses, a bunch of abandoned lots, all those type of things because the demand is so low. You see what I'm saying? So our biggest issue is how do we make every single neighborhood in our cities an acceptable neighborhood where anyone would live, right? Now that's obviously pie in the sky talk, but that is that is it, right? So what I'm saying is, why would someone who can afford, let's say for example, why would someone choose to rent in a nicer neighborhood rather than own in a lesser neighborhood? Right? There's many people making that decision, right? They would say, I would rather rent in this neighborhood than own a house in this neighborhood, right? And that's due to a lack of evenly distributed development within cities. So what you'll find is that, all the main amenities, all the points of attraction, all the good infrastructure, I mean, there's many other things are typically concentrated in certain areas, right? In other areas, they're pretty much deserts. All you got is the corner store, the fried chicken shack, whatever, those type of businesses, right? And nothing wrong with those. I'm just saying that's the concentration of those in those areas. So because of those lack of amenities, poor schools, poor other things like that, those neighborhoods have such low demand, right? So it's just about balancing out supply and demand, and then also not concentrating affordable housing only in poor neighborhoods.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Okay, so what do I mean by that? So what I'm saying is we tend to only build affordable housing in poor neighborhoods. But the problem with that is people don't want to live there. So you have to excessively subsidize it because of the neighborhood. So people want to afford houses in nice neighborhoods. They don't want affordable houses. They want to be able to afford a house in a nicer neighborhood, right? So if you slap, I'm just example here. So instead of building, a $200,000 house in a neighborhood where all the other houses are $150,000, right? It's still an affordable house, technically affordable, but it's in a neighborhood where the houses are less valuable than that. So it's actually the nicest house in that neighborhood, but it still is quote unquote affordable, right? Whereas if you build a $200,000 house in a neighborhood that had $300,000 houses, or if you sold a house for $200,000 in a $300,000 neighborhood and subsidized it somehow, some way, then someone will actually be getting a value because then they'll be going into a house with equity in a nicer neighborhood, and it would change their living situation. That's what I'm trying to say. So, I could talk about this forever. I don't want to go on forever and ever, but those are some of the issues that I see.
I remember though when I was getting ready to buy a house, and I looked at those what we'll call undesirable neighborhoods, as a single person, I just was thinking of safety. It wasn't because I was trying to move on up to the east side of, you remember the George
Right.
Jefferson song, but it's because I was looking for somewhere that was safe for me to move and affordable, right? So
So
how do we address those issues if you're trying to get, say, younger people who may have graduated from college and you're trying to attract them to come back to the communities where they grew up in, for example, but they're saying, yeah, but it's not safe over there anymore. So how do you change? So to me, it's also looking at the amenities that are around in terms of, because we look at the social determinants of health. But again, when you're just not safe to live there, that also is a challenge. And I don't know if
right.
that's something that you all have discussed with any of your clients and feeling that way.
It's so it is the number one thing, right? So right now you have a huge percentage of the first time home buyers are single women,
Mhm.
right? So as a single woman, clearly one of your most important things is going to be safety,
Safety.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, guys, everyone cares about safety, but particularly women in particular are going to be a higher emphasis level, right? And then
Mhm.
also another second group is single women, right? So women who have a child as well, right? So if you're single and you have a child, then now you double thinking about safety because you got to worry about yourself and your child, right?
Mhm.
So the question we should be asking ourselves is, why are there neighborhoods where crime is out of control? Why are there neighborhoods where people don't feel safe to live, right? Like what is going on there? What is causing the crime, right? So that crime is causing a real estate problem, but real estate is not necessarily causing the crime, right?
Mhm.
Now, there are some real estate related answers because if you go in those neighborhoods, typically when there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of abandoned houses, a lot of overgrown properties, a lot of this, that, and the other, because there's a lot of poor enforcement of building codes and municipal codes, right? So people can stand outside, people can, all the stuff we see in those type of neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Whereas you go to other neighborhoods, you're not going to see none of that type of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So because, legacy inner city urban neighborhoods don't have homeowners associations to enforce, basic standards, it's up to the city, and the city is not doing it until other people start moving in those neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you live there, Johnny's standing outside, he doing whatever he want to do, drinking beer, whatever he want to do on the streets, and it's not an issue. When other people move in there, then all of a sudden now that's a code violation, or you got to go inside the house. Da da da. So that's really literally what it is, and I mean it's just real. I mean, I hate to kind of go down that path, but it's real. I think it was a question about gentrification. I couldn't see the exact word.
Yeah. Gentrification.
Explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you explain gentrification then, where they come into poor neighborhoods and price poor people out?
Absolutely. So and I'll use Jacksonville I'll use Jacksonville as an example just because it's a larger city, and you have like private equity and other like major institutional investors doing things in a place like Jacksonville or in Atlanta or Miami, a larger city. You don't have these type of things in Tallahassee, so it's a little bit different. But you can come into they might come into a neighborhood and buy 30, 40, 50 houses, right? Large amounts of houses in a concentrated area. And then once you do that, you control the market, right? So you can just say, look, we're going to sit on these houses and we're going to rent them out for, it used to be $600 a month. Now we're going to raise the rent to $1,200 a month, right? And we know no one here can afford that. So what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to move,
Move.
right? So you start, because the thing that happens where gentrification starts, I think this is what people don't realize is that when the owner occupancy level drops, when the majority of the people live in a neighborhood are renters, that's the beginning of gentrification. That's when gentrification becomes possible, right? Back in the days, we're all different age ranges, but when these neighborhoods were developed, it was people who owned the houses live there, right?
Mhm.
All the people who owned the houses, you knew Miss Mary, Johnny, all the people,
Right.
you knew all them people, right? The people
It was
owned the
a
houses.
community. It was a
It's a
community.
community, right? Went to the school, People worked at the post office. You knew everybody around.
Right.
You go to these neighborhoods now, you don't really see that as much, right? You know, that's remember that as these people's house, but they don't live there no more.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the biggest difference. So I don't want to run too much. Orlando, you probably can chime in on that. I'll see you see a lot, man.
Gentrification. Yeah, it's that's why organizations and communities got to work together on this, because you have to be strategic in how you improve an area. Like, you want to continue this community base. You want to continue to attract in the workforce that, like, you know, teachers, front line people actually pouring back into the younger people in the community, the younger people helping the elderly people in the community, so that transition also looks proper. So a city has to really think about letting the reins go in terms of keeping structures that keep, as I said before, the insurance and the taxes are going to keep increasing, right? Just because of inflation. However, a city can empower communities more like we've done a few things. Now we can build cottages on smaller lots. I say on the north side of Jacksonville. We in Duval right now, so we focus in there. So near Edward Waters University, quite a few smaller lots are being developed into actual housing. Now, as far as the affordability goes, it costs so much to build. So we definitely, as a developer in those areas, I definitely want to sell to families. I want to partner with lenders so they help them with down payment assistance and things like that, so that it is affordable with proper subsidies, because the home is going to be sustainable based on, you know, strong building principles. But if it can stay in the community, if we can have first crack at it, then the gentrification piece is different when somebody sells a portfolio of rentals. You know what I mean? That's going to just keep changing hands with all sorts of people that are not a product of that community. So we have to be intentional with it. And, you know, locally, FCAR, we do a lot of education with that piece, just like Ms. Jocelyn had mentioned with the Jacksonville Urban League. So we are helping with the education and the financial literacy to be empowered. But now we got to take this to another level. That's why I feel like NARAB did create like the Developers Academy, so that emerging developers understand how to scale competitively with the big developers who have a plan to say, this is an area where we can improve prices to this level and just pay off our stakeholders, right? It's got to be more than, it can't just be about the dollars. We got to be, we have to be strategic indeed in order for this thing to go through proper, for it to look a certain way. And last thing I'm gonna say for real is that I advocate heavily for those accessory dwelling units, mother-in-law suites. In Africa, they call them boys' quarters. Those things allow us to keep our teenagers around longer, possibly in that area, and also help us protect the grandmas and the grandpas and the uncles, that wisdom voice, keep them there, and it's affordable. It is an expensive property altogether, possibly, but it subsidizes some affordability in that area where the price point might be $500,000, but if it's a smaller unit on it, it does allow for a lot more affordability for everyone across the board, because different places around the world, there are 6 homes on the property, like 6 easy. And it's like a compound, and they're growing, they're eating from the gardens, they're having dinner together, they're talking about their day, and they're setting up plans, because you have to kind of graduate from that small unit to go get your own property and try to set up the same structure where you can do housing for several families.
I remember I used to watch Dallas back in the day, and I used to always say, when I grow up, I'm gonna buy a big acres of land, and all of us have our own houses. But before I leave, before Dr. Kane asks his question, Orlando, are AEDs allowed on properties in Jacksonville, and are you bound by your association if you live in a community that has a homeowner association?
The process has gotten a lot more friendly, and legislation does allow for it now, even in HOA communities. But, you know, there are different things where the property must match. And every single neighborhood, you know, I'm not saying across the
Makes
slate,
sense.
I understand every one of them, but for the majority, primary residences, if that's where you're going to live, it's not much of an issue for you to reach out to a developer and get mother-in-law suite, ADU, and there are other terms for it built in on your property, because it's, if it doesn't have a full kitchen, it's not an ADU. It has another name. But the more you start working with somebody who has the knowledge in that piece, they can help guide you to knowing where you can place it on the property and how big it can be, because there are restrictions on the sizes. It's really designed for it to be like a efficiency or a 1-bedroom apartment at most. Now we have some neighborhoods where they have them on top of a garage. So you start utilizing like an expert to help you, like, how can I do this most affordably and advantageous for a long-term investment? It's not much of a flip investment at all, but you will spend 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 or so in a place that's going to rent, if you're going to rent it out, for more than $800. So the win financially is there all day long. We just need more support, more subsidies, more grants helping homeowners get that done on their property. And not just homeowners, developers also, because we have the vision to get it done, but I don't want to move on every single property that I develop, but I do have some insight. I understand, hey, if we can build a $200,000 house and a $80,000 accessory dwelling unit there, that's going to take care of more needs than just putting that one house for $280,000.
Orlando, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a health educator. I said AED. I'm thinking about a defibrillator. So pardon me, ADU. But we're going to pause for a moment for our mid-show moment. Don't go anywhere. To our guests or to our audience, our behind-the-scenes guy surprises us each week. So stay tuned. We'll be right back as we see our tonight's mid-show minute.
Hello and welcome to Pause for the Truth Mid-Show Minute. Today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. Today we go where few tread, housing at a crossroads, challenges, choices, and community solutions. For generations, the American dream was anchored in land and home ownership. But for African American families and communities of color, that dream was systematically deferred through redlining, predatory lending, and generational wealth stripping. The landscape is shifting, and not evenly. Today, the housing landscape is undergoing a seismic shift. Skyrocketing rents, hedge fund neighborhood buyouts, and rising interest rates are creating a new crisis on top of an old wound. The numbers still tell the deeper story. The white-black home ownership gap sits at 28.4 points today, wider than it was in the 1960s before the Fair Housing Act was even signed into law, and it isn't closing with time. Redfin data shows home ownership climbing for white Gen Z and millennial households, while actually slipping for their black peers, meaning young black families are losing ground today, not gaining it, where the housing crisis becomes a homelessness crisis. While black Americans make up roughly 13% of the overall population, structural barriers cause our people to represent well over a third of those experiencing homelessness nationwide. Some data putting it closer to 40% of the sheltered population. Homelessness overall hit an all-time high of more than 771,000 people in 2024, 34% higher than just a decade ago. And in cities like Washington, D.C., black residents are 44.4% of the general population, but nearly 85% of the homeless population. That is a direct pipeline from housing insecurity to total displacement. If we continue treating housing strictly as a speculative financial asset for corporate profit, the unhoused population will not just grow, it will explode, further devouring our disenfranchised communities. A new perspective on housing. It is time for a radically new perspective. We must stop viewing a roof over our heads solely as a wealth commodity and start treating it as a fundamental human right and a pillar of community self-determination. True solutions won't trickle down from Wall Street. They must be built from within. We need to champion land trusts, cooperative housing models, and community-led development that keep property in the hands of the people who live there. True equity means protecting our renters, reclaiming our neighborhoods from speculative buyers, and building a collective shield so that every family, regardless of zip code or income, has a secure, dignified place to call home. That's your mid-show minute. The Crossroads was built by choices made decades ago. Which road we take next is still ours to decide.
You know, that was excellent as usual, Tyrone. And he brought up some points. And one of the things that Dr. Jones mentioned earlier is new ideas on urban planning.
Oh, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, per Dr. Jones.
Okay.
Yeah, but one of the other things I want to look at, and he talked about Springfield, and it looked like he's reading my mind when I start thinking about some of those things. Talk about what's happening over in Springfield as well. But when we start looking at urban planning, it does invite us to be more participatory in our government, definitely more participatory in voting, because you want to get the right people in to help protect neighborhoods like ours and gentrification. And one of the places I look over in Springfield, I remember that was a time you couldn't get anybody to move over in Springfield. You couldn't give away a house. Okay? And then a lot of the older folk that were in Springfield, you know, a lot of times they die off or they get sick or whatever it may be. And then their children have moved away. And it's not just Springfield, it's anywhere. Children have moved away. And then you have these people that swarm in, you know, just dive in and start buying up these houses for next to nothing because somebody that lives in New York, you know, he doesn't want to try to rent out his grandma property over in Springfield because it's an older house, not realizing the value of that same property right now as we speak. In terms of, and I remember that started some, I don't know, 10, 15 years back, 15, right. Whatever it was, it started back about that time. And a lot of those houses started getting bought out by these so-called entrepreneurs, but we all know what they are. You guys called them that earlier. But anyway, I just want to try to find out from and ask you guys, what do you guys think a way for us to help, at least from a standpoint of when we see housing going down in terms of the houses going down in terms of how well they're kept and everything. What can we do as a community to start looking at addressing that without gentrification taking place?
The balance.
Yeah, it's not I know it's not an easy answer, but I was asking you if you guys have an opinion.
Well, go ahead.
No, okay, so I will argue that the neighborhoods that we're talking about, they've already been gentrified, and this is what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that when they first were built and developed, they were already nice neighborhoods.
Right.
They were nice neighborhoods. They were middle-class neighborhoods. So when they went from a middle-class neighborhood to the ghetto, then that was gentrification. It was just another type of gentrification, right? So, you know, so it's already gentrified, right? When it went from a nice middle-class African-American working class neighborhood to the hood with a bunch of other activity going on. So the problem is, the biggest issue that we're faced with is we have to have a community standard and we have to have community accountability, right? So what I'm saying is there has to be a standard. We have to have ad hoc HOAs, right? May not be legally enforceable, but there has to be some way that you can enforce that, hey, you can't just come and cut your grass twice a year. You know, you can't board up the windows of your house. You can't have 12 cars in your yard. Like, it has to be a neighborhood is responsibility. So we have to form. A lot of neighborhoods have neighborhood associations, but those neighborhood associations have to hold each other accountable, not just the city, right? There are many things that we can complain to the city about, and
Right.
there's many things that have been wrong. We've been underinvested in, many things, right? I mean, we can go on and on, but let's control what we can control,
I agree.
right? Let's control what we can control. So ain't no excuse for you not cutting your grass. Ain't no excuse for you boarding up your window. Ain't no, all the things that people do, renting out to people doing nefarious activities, things like that. We got to put an end to that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one day I was at my office, and I work on the east side here in Jacksonville, and a gentleman was cleaning someone's car. There's a park across the street from my office. A gentleman was cleaning out someone's car, and he was just taking trash and just dumping it, just tossing it out the window, just on the ground, an enormous amount of garbage.
Yeah.
And we were mortified, right? Like, and all I could think is that the east side got that community benefits funding through the relationship with the NFL and the city and all. And I thought all these millions of dollars are being pumped into that community, but we've got to change folks' mindset. Well, my colleagues and I, we were mortified. One of them, she ran out faster than I did. So I was just a spectator, but she took a bag to him. She said, "Hey, you can't do that. Can you put the stuff in the bag?" Well, needless to say, the owner of the car was sitting in the park, and she came and picked up the garbage. But the thought that he thought it was okay to just toss the trash out of the car onto the road, and it's just flying everywhere. So you're absolutely right. Excuse me, Dr. Daniels, but I want to talk a little bit as we're nearing the end to ask, what innovative strategies have you seen communities use to increase affordable housing opportunities?
Well, there's definitely been the design with construction. So that's one. So when I mentioned sustainability earlier, asphalt roofs, they're going to fail eventually. You have to think about things that will make the process easier 10, 20, 30 years from now, possibly, like a metal roof, an area that's, grass is important. Grass has its actual, beautification, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't eat it. So right, Dr. Kane, you can't eat it. My granddad had a little bit of land around his home, right? But the big deal with my granddad is that he had a garden. He had a garden, and he grew more than he could eat. So he could share with the family, and we should be able to take heed and say, okay, I understand, reuse the water, get these plants growing so that I can at least cut down on that expense. And I'm not just pushing the lawnmower, I'm doing something that's communal. I can share, eat, we can do those kind of things. And a lot in Jacksonville with we got these trees. We got these trees on the north and east side. The trees might be 200 years old. Those roots, they go into the sidewalks, into the street. We got all this cracking, nobody can skateboard on some of the streets. It'll be impossible, right? So a lot of those things are that's systematic. So that's why I say I'm talking a lot to people that have an opportunity to renovate or to build. It's like, think about what you design and are they going to survive in spite of what you created or because of what you created? And that's how in the neighborhood, I like to hire kids sometimes, cut the grass for me. I see them sometimes walk around with the lawnmower. Like, let me go ahead and pay you to do this. Let me go ahead and try to pay this other young person to pick up this trash, like you say. So those are some things. But another last thing I would say is, you got to share some walls sometime. We need more duplexes, triplexes, townhomes throughout the city, because that's more affordable on the land. It's going to make it where it's like, one entity can control how that landscape looks and feels. And that's going to be helpful as well. So they have more mixed use coming online, where it's commercial combination with residential. Those are absolutely successful. Everywhere you look, that's what Nocatee was built on outside of Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah, so that those strategies are there. But Springfield, once upon a time, had a pick and save back in the day.
On 8th Street.
Yeah, we know about pick and save. That was a different type of vibe and heartbeat in the area. So we got to have more corporations that want to. Do you want to be part of the heartbeat for this community? Like, how you gonna feed it?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, with Ms. Turner, I asked you that question. I asked you a question earlier today in terms of what the city was sending me some requests, my input, and how to help improve the neighborhood on the north side, because they're having a campaign by which to try to do that. And the first thing you said was a canopy.
Tree canopies.
Yeah, tree canopies,
Mm-hmm.
and which I think is great because, and you were saying it was mainly because of the
Heat deserts.
heat desert, being a heat desert and a heat reservoir, as I call it, because of all the asphalt and stuff of that nature. Also on the north side, and I'm not picking on Jacksonville north side, but it's not where I live, but it's where I work. And my concern there is still having a community that can have enough businesses in the community to where you can shop within that community, and you don't have to run over on the other side of town to grab grocery. Yeah, you can get, like what you guys said, 5 chicken places, fried chicken places. These days there seems to be a lot of fried fish places going up on Jacksonville north side. I'm going, where are these fish? And
we got the river right there.
like I'm being, anti anything, but they're not black owned. But they're in the black community, bringing in all the those businesses like that, and part of the reason is because we can't get the monies to expand on businesses, but they redlining us within the area that's already redlined toward us. So I don't know if you guys have any possible suggestion on any of that, but I thought I'd throw it out to our audience and let it know it's not as easy as what one would think in terms of trying to improve those neighborhoods. It's going to take a lot of work from us and political participation. But
a lot of participation. The Riverview community, they're working very, very well together in cleaning up the river. Yeah, so they're installing the oyster.
Yep.
Yeah, with the Oyster Fest. FCAR, we participated with them this year. So it went from when they have the actual Oyster Fest, 600 people a year ago in April to over 1,800 people this year. And now, they have the roses over there, and they're working diligently on the commercial corridor. Because like you said, you need some businesses that are healthy and all that kind of stuff. And Earth and White now has a garden. So we also had a Garden of Eden over in Brentwood. So we're starting to gain a little bit more momentum, like you said, Dr. Kane, but you definitely need a partnership, public-private partnership to pay for all this stuff.
Right.
Because you don't have a lot of comps as a business to say, okay, I think if I go ahead and put this $4 million into this is what my return will look like based on any historical data. It might not be there.
Let me throw it out real quick about the roses since you mentioned it. That may be closing down because the owners of that building have not repaired the air conditioning. And Roses has not had air conditioning in that store since January. And that's a huge big box store, for that side. It used to be a Kmart, as you guys will probably know. It used to be a Kmart. And so I'm not sure what the purpose of them not, and some of those businesses that were just starting out surrounding that, they're closing down because these guys are not repairing the AC. And I'm not sure why that's the case, but
you throwing it out there now. So you HVAC professionals, this is your calling. Like, you're up. You know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
Put your cape on and get over there.
Right. It needs to get something done.
So I want to talk a bit before we leave the podcast. If someone is listening and they are interested in buying a home, what practical steps should they take today if they hope to buy a home within the next 1 to 3 years?
Okay. Well, I got a 10-step to home ownership guide that I'll be able to provide them so they can go on there. But you want to be ready before it's time. So you got to check your credit. You got to have a realistic budget. Obviously, save for your home, your down payment or your closing costs. Get pre-approved before you start shopping. So after you're doing those things I said first, and now it's like, okay, now I'm ready. Now you're working with you're working with a realtor's professional to help you get your financing. And then once you get pre-approved, definitely take a home buyer education course. Do it so that you know how to buy and then how to keep the home and improve the value. And, build your team. You need a lender, an agent, you need an inspector, and then they should guide you and help you with down payment assistance programs, right? Because money's just it's not endless. So you want to utilize those things when you qualify, especially as a first-time home buyer. This is your first time to get it right. All right, and then choose something that fits. If you can get an income with it, like a duplex, go for it.
Yeah, I did that when I got ready to buy a house. I said, "Oh, I'm not going to be embarrassed. Let me go and see and go to the bank first and get qualified." So I don't know, right? I did the same thing with a car. I was like, I don't want to go look for a Lexus and they weren't going to prove me for a Hyundai, right? I'm not judging Hyundais, but I'm just saying I did that with both because I didn't want to. And you shouldn't be embarrassed, right? You got to know. You need to know what you're working with. But I want to ask, how can local governments, lenders, nonprofit organizations, and private businesses work together to address housing challenges? You all have mentioned a few things tonight, but what's the one thing that kind of grinds your gears and you want to say, if only these people would do this, what would it be in your opinions?
Yes.
I would say one of the most effective tools right now is down payment assistance. I mean, the biggest kind of impediment to being able to buy a house for most people is not having enough money saved for a down payment. So really being more strategic about down payment assistance and not overcomplicating it and not overdoing it, right? So let's not give one person a $70,000 subsidy when we could have given 7 people a $10,000 subsidy. That's really all they really actually needed, right? So I think it's really evaluating down payment assistance programs and spreading them out to as many people as possible, and also concentrating them in target areas. And then also, in addition to that, removing some of the restrictions that make people have to stay in these homes for so long, where they could be kind of used as springboards to get to a better economic state. So I would say those are a couple things that I would say.
Well, let me ask you a quick question on this one. So if there was a time, I know some people, they like doing like investment clubs. Okay. Yep. A group of people get together, as you know what that is, investment club. Do you have any advice on those individuals? Because you may have a group of doctors who say, look, let's kind of pool our monies together and go invest in a projects, whatever it may be. And so any advice on them to help and create affordable housing?
Yeah. So I run an investment club here in Tallahassee with a group of people doing the same exact thing. I mean, so the key to an investment club is just having a common strategy and a common acceptable return, right? So if people are okay, let's say, for example, that people want to get a 10% return on their money, something just a little bit above, kind of average, just a good return. Then you could do affordable housing all day with those type of returns. However, if people want to double their money and make 25, 30% returns, then you're gonna be building luxury condos like everybody else, right? So what you have to do is you have to find a group of people who are willing to accept a reasonable return. You can get a good return. You can get solid 10 double-digit returns,
Yeah.
lower double-digit returns, and do affordable housing all day, literally all day long. You can get it all day long. So I would say just and then also linked it in the term of the investment horizon, right? So it's not like, okay, I got to put my money in and get it right back next week, right? Getting people who are willing to put it in for a couple of years, let it turn around, kind of spread things out, deal with the city and some of their delays and whatnot. But when you do that, you can create a lot of affordable housing if you put a good, solid group of people together and just have, at least one person. Because what happens is with investment clubs, a lot of them, they're great people, very well-meaning people, but they don't have like a real, true real estate expert running it, right? So it's like a bunch of very well-meaning novices, right?
Right.
Which is good, but you make a lot of rookie mistakes that end up costing you money, that ends up lessening your impact. So people who have groups of people who want to do this need to get with experienced developers, right? Let's not make affordable housing the B team activity, right? Let's not bring the junior varsity people into that, right? Let's bring the best. Let's bring the starting lineup, right? So whoever the biggest developers are, the biggest people, and just get them to align with that objective, and then putting the funds behind them, and then you'll be able to get it done.
When you talk to some of those guys, those investment advisors, you start talking, they start saying, depending on how quickly you want to return on your dollar and so on and so and so. But those who are also, they think about when they're youthful, the younger folks especially, they got a little bit more time to grow their money, to grow.
Yeah.
And so a 10% is really a pretty good return. It's definitely way ahead of inflation.
Way ahead.
Yeah, way ahead of inflation, even though it seems like this administration is trying to catch up, but it's still way ahead of inflation.
Much ahead of inflation, right?
So it's a long-term investment process, but it's one of those things that can allow you to retire early if you get into it, early. Better than sending your money in a bank and you're getting 0.1% return on your dollar.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can consistently get 8, 9, 10% returns, you'll be doubling your money every 5 or 6 years.
You retire early for sure,
and you'll retire much earlier, much better, in a much stronger financial position. So you certainly can do it. Now, one thing I will say, speaking on the financial advisory piece, is that most financial advisors are not qualified to give real estate advice because they're not trained. Right. They're not trained on that. They're trained on stock market.
That's
right.
It.
So they're going to teach you how to get in mutual funds, a myriad of other things, maybe some REITs, some other things like that. But they're not qualified for that, right? And that's one thing that I'm actually looking to do, and I know that many people in the industry are looking to do, because there's a lot more people, higher net worth people who want to invest in real estate. So real estate is considered what we call an alternative investment. So that's not a traditional investment that's taught to financial advisors.
Right.
So you have to have someone who's actually specifically an expert in real estate to advise you on real estate, right? They can advise you on the finance and things like that. But that's why a lot of people advise people not to invest in real estate. But when you really look at the numbers, the return is going to be the same, if not more, than you would have got in the stock market.
Exactly, because those financial advisors will tell you, hey, depending on how long you want to be in the market, if you want to take high risk, you can get this, and this. Mm-hmm. But the key word is high risk. High risk. Real estate is not a high risk unless you're just getting somebody who don't really know what they're doing.
Exactly.
And then, like you say, there's a learning curve to that, but you can help diminish that learning curve by getting somebody and talking to someone who knows what they're doing with real estate.
Absolutely.
And how do you validate, if I wanted to go and do something like that, how do I validate a person who comes along and claim that they're a great either real estate agent or a great manager of real estate or whatever it may be? I don't know if you guys look at that kind of stuff or not. So
tell them to send you the proof, right? So Let's say, for example, if I want to do a real estate development and I want to go to the bank, what they're gonna ask me to send them proof that I've done it before, right? So just say, send me 5 addresses that you've done before, or whatever.
Gotcha.
You can look it up. Their name is all public record. You can do all your research. So just ask them. You ask them to send you HUDs. HUDs are the settlement statements when you sell or buy a property. HUD is a short word for a settlement statement. So you can ask them to send you the settlement statement, which is the closing documents from when you buy or sell a house.
Did you say HUD? HUD?
HUD. We call it HUD. HUD.
Yeah, you can't get that confused with HUD. Housing and urban development. That's
not that one. Not the same thing.
Nah.
But it is a document that was created by HUD. So
Gotcha.
it is required by law to provide people with a settlement statement which says how much they're getting. It is all the finances of a real estate deal. That's called a settlement statement, or a HUD for short, right?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is let's say someone comes and says, I'm a real estate developer. I've done lots of deals. Okay. Well, send me the addresses that you've done, right? Send me 3 or 4 addresses that you've done. Then you can go on the property appraiser's website, whatever. It's different in different cities, but, you can look it up. And if you see their name, make sure that's their name, make sure everything matches up. And you say, okay, well, this person's done. And it'll say what they bought it for, what they sold it for. So you can look at, when they bought it, when they sold it, all that is public record. That all can be researched. So just doing a little bit of due diligence behind that is a good way to be able to filter
One
out.
last quick question is, do you guys teach any of that? You got any classes on that to help educate those potential investors? And again, and I think you mentioned something to even just first-time home buyers. What educational processes do you guys have in place that if I wanted to go to and learn something about this, additional to what we talked about this evening, where do we go to look for that kind of stuff? Especially if you guys, since I'm hearing you guys talking, it sounded very trustworthy, that I don't have to go look up HUD necessarily. But educate the general public on where to go and who to talk to and what to do and yada yada yada.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can share my website. I'll share it in. I don't know if I should put it in the chat, but I have a website, and also on social media we can connect. So I'm on LinkedIn, Christopher Daniels. I'm on Facebook, Christopher Daniels. On TikTok, Chris Daniels 1887. And then my website is Smart Growth Developments with the S. So smartgrowthdevelopments.com. And so you can I'll put it in the chat if it's accessible. But you can get on there and just, jump in and get some information. So I'll put it in the group chat or put it in the chat.
Yeah. And Tyrone will put it on our website. And what, Orlando, what about you? Do you have a local contact for folks?
Local contact, yeah.
You can put it in the chat.
You hashtag oluxlife.com. That can take you to all sorts of stuff that we've done over the years and what we're doing. And if you go to fcarjacks.com, that's the Realtors Association group where we have events where we do things to help you, like increase your knowledge of real estate and financial literacy and stuff like that, because there are tons of strong professionals in it. But personally with the development, that's Olux Life. I'm Orlando J. Spencer on Facebook. Love to talk about these things because home ownership, affordable housing, development, it's all a team sport. You know what I mean? So football background, this is a huddle. I think based on what we've kind of brought in here today for people to hear, we're going to break out this huddle and do a bunch of deals. So y'all should definitely be down in the text box. Let us know what you want out of us, how we can connect so that we can turn these different dreams into like realities, action.
And it's FCARJacks.com.
And right. And then the personal website is oluxlife.com.
OLUX
LIFE. Yes.
LIFE.com. Okay. So looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what gives you hope about the future of housing?
Hope about the future of housing. Well, I like that we are increasing density, right? We're all getting closer. of course, like you said, Jocelyn, in the beginning, you had dreamed about this large acreage property where you could walk the field and sniff the lilies and everything like that.
Personal compound.
Right. But in order for us to not have to later on, because of this large rift in affordability and the missing median middle, I think we got to all get a lot tighter and closer. We got to be able to walk to where we need, where we have our needs and necessities and wishes. It's got to be like in walking distance. So that means we got to make many more communities appealing. Like Dr. Daniels mentioned earlier, he said, hey, so you got 90% of the people want to live in 10% of the areas. We have to spread that wealth out so more people are living the dream. So that's what I like about it. I think it's more logical. And locally in Jacksonville, we have an outstanding city council group that they are accessible. They are going to hear what we have to say. So we really have to have a plan together, because we can't expect those politicians to also execute what is a specialty in real estate or the financial market. So I'm hopeful that now we have more access. We have bigger microphones, just like this platform tonight, for us to share to people. This is what's in my head, and now you understand it. So let's connect.
Yeah, because you all have some great, the First Coast Association of Realtors, y'all have some wonderful events. And although you have good participation, all the seats aren't filled, right?
Right.
It gets a bit disappointing when you're like, oh my God, this is such great information. We needed more people here, but you're happy that the people who showed up came, right? So we really want to make sure that you tell folks to follow you all on social media, and then that way they'll get to hear about what educational workshops that you all offer. So congratulations on doing the work that you do. Dr. Daniels, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of looking ahead? What gives you hope about the future of housing?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited because there's so many African Americans who own property, and there is the transfer of wealth that's going on from generation to generation right now. It's a tremendous opportunity, and a lot of African Americans own land in very strategic areas, right? So if you look at, let's take Jacksonville for example, right? That area over there by Edward Waters. I mean, that area, most of the properties over there are owned by Black people. The Black neighborhood, right next to downtown. Once downtown Jacksonville really reaches its full potential, the people who own properties down there and that know what they're doing and understand real estate are going to be millionaires, right? Multi-millionaires, right? So it's just about getting the education to people, right? And people just accepting that. So real estate is one of those things that a lot of people own, but not many people understand, right? Mm-hmm. So having the humility to understand it, that I need to learn about real estate, right? So if more people actually just take the time to take some good quality courses, to get good quality professionals that they have help them with their real estate development journey, they're going to be able to realize a tremendous amount of wealth in these Florida markets, in these Georgia markets, in these other fast growing markets. There's a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate to have a best friend who's a broker realtor, so I always go to her because I know what I can tell you where to go shop for some clothes, but she can tell you where to buy how to buy a house. So, right. And shout out to Cheryl Owens, by the way. But that's the end of our podcast. This is a great discussion, and I have to add this because Dr. Kane always says an hour is never long enough. But we certainly need to have you all back because you touched on some things that we did not talk about. And look like Dr. Kane has one more question he wants to ask.
Not actually one more question. I wanted to hear from Spencer on what he's, Mr. Spencer, and what his final thoughts are. What his final thoughts are.
Oh, I wasn't finished, Dr. Kane. I was getting ready to go there.
Oh, I thought I didn't know. I wanted to make sure you didn't skip it.
No, you stopped me. Hold on. I'm getting ready to say that. Okay. But again, as we near the end of the podcast, and we will make all of the websites public to you, but as they said, they're www.smartgrowthdevelopments.com, OLUXLIFE.com, and FCARJAX.com. But at the end of every podcast, we like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts, perhaps something that we talked about a little bit, but you would like to talk about as we end the discussion a little bit more, or anything that you'd like to leave with our audience, if you would go ahead and do so. Orlando, I'm going to start with you.
All right. Yes, again, thank you all for having us here. This platform is fantastic. I'm a man that's blessed from God, so I thank him for everything that he does for us. And you know that in the Bible, it is said that we are supposed to own property. So it's our absolute right, and it's our mission to own property and be educated and use it in the proper way. So the proper housing creates awesome opportunities. So as president of FCAR, that's my job, to create opportunities. As a real estate developer, I got to create things that people want and desire. So I thank God for that skill and be able to make that happen. And the final thoughts is that, the opportunities are here. So come out and see us next Friday, August 7th. We have a back to school event that we're partnering with Build Up Foundation and Spencer Construction and Engineering. So we're going to give away things. We're going to feed people. We're going to talk about real estate and how that education in that school is going to begin evolving in Duval County, where we're going to start pushing in more real estate into these classrooms.
Awesome. Now that's worth talking about more when you come back. Thank you so much. And Dr. Daniels, other than being my brother's friend and frat brother, because he's been texting me, that's my dog. Yeah, whatever.
That's Dr. Ken Jones as well.
What are your final thoughts, Dr. Daniels?
I want to say what's up to any of my good bros listening, So besides that, though, honestly, there's a lot of great opportunities. I'm very enthusiastic about the future of African Americans. There's a lot of people right now who are seeking knowledge, who are seeking wisdom and seeking wealth. But please just take the time to properly vet people and make sure that the person giving you advice is actually qualified to give you advice, right? There's been a lot of people in the last 5-6 years who have skipped the line and went straight from nobodies to experts, all right? And all of a sudden, now they coaches, consultants, they never did it. Any real estate, they went straight from nobody to a real estate coach, So please don't fall for that, right? And make sure that you really vet people out. If someone cannot send you real proof of deals that they've done, they have not done them, right? If they can't send you real proof of people who they helped, they can't help you, right? So just like anything else, people need, just like when you go to your doctor has a degree, and your doctor has certifications. Anyone that you're taking advice from should have some sort of certification or some sort of degree, right? That's it, right? So we're not trying to be bougie. We're not trying to be stuck up. There's a lot of people who have got it out the mud, and that's very great, But make sure that you vetting people and making sure that before you give anyone your money or spend an excessive amount of time or listen to that person, that they have verifiable credentials.
I agree. Thank you so much. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts?
Well, main thing is listen to these gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank both of you guys for coming on board. Much appreciated, because this is something, even though I bought houses, I can't advise anybody like you guys can and give them the right advice. If I had to leave one thing that I might add to this, and that would be estate planning. When as far as the future of your housing and the future of your children in housing, estate planning, and then make sure you get a real estate attorney to help put things together for you to have a good financial deal that is kind of bulletproof against, more or less, bulletproof against someone else walking in and trying to steal from you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, what an outstanding conversation. Thank you again to Mr. Orlando Spencer and Dr. Christopher Daniels for sharing your expertise, insights, and practical advice with our audience this evening. One of the biggest takeaways from today's discussion is that while the housing landscape is challenging, there are also opportunities with planning, education, as was mentioned a lot tonight, trusted guidance, as also was mentioned, and strong community partnerships. More individuals and families can move towards stable housing and home ownership. We encourage everyone watching to take the next step, whether that's improving your financial readiness, attending a home buyer education class, connecting with trusted housing professionals such as these gentlemen, or learning more about programs available in your community. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Pause for the Truth. If you found today's discussion helpful, please share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe so you'll never miss an important conversation. Until next time, I'm Jocelyn Turner. Remember, informed communities are empowered communities. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday on Pause for the Truth.
We appreciate you spending time with us on Pause for the Truth. Ms. Jocelyn Turner and Dr. Rogers Kane are grateful for your support. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, catch us live on Twitch, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. A big shout out to Tyrone Jackson at Call Tyrone IT Services for keeping us connected. Join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more enlightening discussions. Thanks, and see you next week.